Go further with the American Express Business Gold Card. Earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels when you book through AmexTravel.com. Whether your destination is a business conference or a client meeting, your purchases will help you earn more points for future trips. Experience more on your travels with Amex Business Gold. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Your favorite local grocery stores like Kroger, Ralph's, Fred Meyer, and more are now delivering on Uber Eats. Get 40% off your order of fresh, quality ingredients. Whether you just got home to an empty fridge or suddenly got a craving to whip up something new, you can get everything you need delivered in as little as 25 minutes. Get 40% off your order with code Kroger2026. Plus, members get $0 delivery fees. Order now on Uber Eats. Orders of $30 or more save up to $25. Ends 4/30/26. See app for details.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmersday, April 20th, 2026. On the show today, Rock and Roller Coaster's opening date and set list, the Deluxe dining plan returns, and Universal Express news, plus listener questions. Then in our main segment, Jim continues the history of Disney's Live the Dream project for Disneyland's second theme park with hotels built on top of attractions. Let's get started by bringing in the man who asks why scientists settled on the word invertebrate when non-spinary was right there. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It's going well, Len. And spinary makes me think of spine, which makes me think of walking upright, which, by the way, we as a species have only supposedly been doing for 6 or 7 million years. And, the way it was explained to me that this really became important to people about the same time that they began putting candy in the checkout aisle at stores. Suddenly, standing upright meant that you'd see
a wider set of options. I'm with you, yeah.
That's it exactly. And speaking of which, Len, when exactly did Dubai chocolate, a year ago, this was nowhere.
I asked Laurel this question. My first question was, well, what is it?
Yeah.
And apparently it's chocolate mixed with other things like pistachio. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, fine, but that's a movement? That's a thing? We call that Cadbury where I come from.
Okay.
But okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's just, and the notion that I now encounter it everywhere I go, and it's like, Len, I don't know if I necessarily need this much pistachio in my life. I'd gotten along pretty well, like an occasional muffin, but now it's like 24/7. Have you had your pistachios today?
It's a lot, and Laurel and I have commented on it as well. Have you tried the chocolate?
I have.
And?
Well, it's kind of like somebody took a chocolate bar and a handful of lawn clippings.
It's herbaceous. It's vegetal. Is that what you're saying?
There we go.
All right. Well, thank you for the report. I think I'll pass on this.
Okay. A very smart move on your part.
All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the show over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Christine Jones, Kevin H. Horn, Andy Weinecke, Greg Daly, Nate Yalton, and Holly Tauren. Jim, this is Disney's culinary team coming up with themed jelly beans for Disney's new Villains Land. The first batch of test flavors includes Maleficent, blood orange with a hint of smoke, Ursula, black licorice with sea salt caramel, and Cruella de Vil, vanilla with a dash of black pepper and Dalmatian kisses. True story.
Okay, we're just going to keep going.
On to the news, folks. The Disney Dish News is sponsored by UnlockedMagic.com from our friends at DVCRentalStore.com. The new songs at Rock and Roller Coaster are your chance to say, see kids, my playlist is straight bangers, or whatever the youth is saying today. Our friends at UnlockedMagic.com have discounted theme park tickets that'll get your family onto all of Disney's new and reopening rides. So get your theme park tickets now at UnlockedMagic.com so you can say, you know this one, as you accelerate to 60 miles an hour.
Okay.
All right, Jim. First bit of news out of Walt Disney World. Every show should begin with a round of self-congratulations. On our August 25th show last year, we revealed a survey where Disney asked about changes to the dining plan that included the old Deluxe dining plan option. Lo and behold, Jim, today Disney announced the return of the Deluxe dining plan for 2027, and the details match those in the survey. So you'll get 2 table service meals per night, 1 quick service meal, 1 snack or non-alcoholic drink, and 1 resort refillable mug. Disney also announced dining plan prices for 2027. So the quick service plan next year will cost you $62.78 per day, table service will be $99.87. Let's call it $100. And then the deluxe table service plan is $163.01. Also, I want to give a shout out to our listeners, Stephanie Graves, Zach Hare, and Taylor Graff, and the others who sent in that survey back in August. I've sent them all emails saying, thanks very much. This thing actually came true. So, Jim, what do you make of this?
Well, we have talked previously on recent Disney dishes about, how the summer seems to be softer than Disney would have liked booking-wise. And face it, there are a lot of folks who, when they announce Disney dining, are like, sign me up. What have you got available at what hotel? This is the sort of thing that actually does make folks book vacation packages. So
it does.
So again, it does sort of feed into the narrative that, Disney is looking at the summer of 2026 and thinking, okay, we need to put a few more things on the table to get people to commit. So here we are.
I think so. I think you and I have talked offline about the stuff we've heard around, restaurant utilization, table service restaurant utilization, running around 25 to 55% capacity, which is historically low. And this is a way to attempt to get more people into those restaurants without having to make major changes on Disney's part. I mean, I'm sure Disney's work to add the deluxe table service plan to the dining plan is relatively easy compared to things like revamping a new restaurant or offering discounts or things like that. So this is a simple, straightforward move to try and see if it moves the needle, right? I get that.
Okay.
Here's my concern, right? We're in April, call it May of 2026. I don't think anyone expects Tropical Americas to open in the next year. So the dining plan that they're doing here for 2027, I think also hedges Disney against the possibility of a late fall, early winter Tropical Americas open, which would, be in months 10, 11, or 12 of 2027, which I'm like right now I'm saying that's probably what it's going to be without any other, insider knowledge. So this gives them a little bit of hedge against that. I don't think when you take this dining plan launch announcement into the context of the other deals that we've heard, I don't think this is going to move the needle. This is not the silver bullet. So we should expect to see more things like this.
Okay. But wow. I mean, but again, think about it. People do plan their Disney World vacations this far out, but the notion of laying this down on the table for 2027.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's not an immediate solution either, too. We've still got to get through 2026 and we've still got, 8 months of that left. So.
Yep.
All right, on to other news. Rock and Roller Coaster's opening date is May 26th, 2026, which, Jim, we had pretty much guessed at before. Also, Disney announced the Rock and Roller Coaster set list. I'll go through them now. Song 2 by Blur, performed by the Electric Mayhem. So everything's performed by the Electric Mayhem with some featured singers. Born to be Wild, with Camilla the Chicken. Love Roller Coaster with Jennifer Hudson and Questlove. Rock Till You Drop from Def Leppard with the Electric Mayhem, and then Walking on Sunshine, which is a cover of Katrina and the Waves featuring Kelly Clarkson. Say what you will about the set list. I think the song arrangements here are going to be super important to get the vibes right for the ride, right? So I looked at this and I thought, okay, song 2 is definitely a rock and roll song. Born to be Wild, rock and roll song. Rock Till You Drop, rock and roll song. The other ones are pop or R&B. But it comes down to the arrangement, right? There's a vast difference between Bob Dylan's version of All Along the Watchtower and Jimi Hendrix's version of All Along, right? So the arrangement is gonna do stuff here. Jim, I gotta say that I think they missed the obvious chance here to do John Cage's 433, which is 4.5 minutes of utter silence where the ambient noise is the music. And I'm just saying, like, that came out in 1952. The Mayhem would absolutely 100% without question have covered that song back in the 60s. And I think anyone who disagrees with that is just utterly wrong. Like, we all understand that the Mayhem would have done 433 in the 60s.
Yeah, again, would have made an interesting writing experience, but you're not wrong. Okay.
Also, I was talking with a friend who's a huge Def Leppard fan, and they pointed out Def Leppard song "Animal" was right there. And guys, do we have to explain this to everyone? Like,
well,
anyway, that's fine. And again, the arrangements are going to be the key here. We'll see what happens. Did you notice, Jim, that the list of celebrity cameos that appear in the ride?
Yeah, and again, very interesting. On the heels of, well, remember our Sabrina Carpenter pilot. That's not a pilot for the revival. I mean, I look at this list and think, okay, these are folks who could actually show up on a revived version of the Muppet TV show. So I enjoy it. If anything, just Weird Al Yankovic alone.
Right. So it's Aquafina, Danny Trejo, Darren Criss, John Stamos, Neil Patrick Harris, Travis Barker for Blink-182, who I think is actually a Disney theme park fan. Yvette Nicole Brown, Wayne Brady, and Weird Al, of course, who is welcome in any musical form of any type, anytime, anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
And Jim, through a friend of the show, we were able to get a quote, really, not making this up, from Al Yankovic about working on Rock and Roller Coaster with the Muppets. And here's what he had to say. Al says, obviously, I love the Muppets and I love Disney theme parks. So when they asked me if I would entertain the people waiting in line, I immediately said yes. And then when they told me I could do it via pre-recorded video instead of being there in person all day long, even better.
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
National treasure, this guy. Al's a national treasure. And thanks to our listener who helped us get that quote. I really appreciate it.
Cool. All right, so we'll see. Again, the arrangements are going to be super important here. Disney's already said there are going to be DVC, annual pass holder, and other previews. I'm guessing, what, Jim, 2 or 3 weeks in advance?
Gotta be. I mean,
so first week of May they might start.
Okay, which again just ties in with again. Remember, we were talking in November last year when they shut down the pre-show. With the notion of they wanted to get this going as soon as possible, and the fact that up and running before Memorial Day. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's good. All right, so we'll see. Okay. I'm excited to see what happens. By the way, for folks who subscribe to touringplans.com, I've already increased the crowd level for that particular ride for the May 26th through mid-June, so that we're anticipating roughly 100-minute actual waits. So that's like a crowd level 9 just for that one ride. I don't know if the rest of the park is going to be that super busy, but just for that one ride. Yeah. Okay. Also, Jim, here's an interesting rumor from over at the Magic Kingdom. So remember back in the day, pre-pandemic, if you were to play the game A Pirate's Adventure, that little scavenger hunt game in Adventureland, you would get a Pirates of the Caribbean Fast Pass, an immediately good one, if you completed some number of quests for your entire family. And word around the rum barrels, Jim, is that that's back now in Adventureland. So the rumor is if you play A Pirate's Adventure in the Magic Kingdom, you get a lightning lane for pirates now. So if our listeners want to try that out and let us know how it works, we're going to try it, obviously the same thing. I'll do it probably sometime this week. But yeah, try it out and let us know. Okay, quick question. If I play it twice, do I get a fast pass into the new Pirates Lounge? Because to be honest... exactly. How many things do I need to complete to get a drink around here? Exactly. That's the next obvious question, right? Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong. A lightning lane to Pirates of the Caribbean is of value, but one that gets me... Beacon Barrel reservation. There we go. That's something, right? Yeah, all right. Jim, over at Disneyland, our friends at Mouse Planet are reporting that Disney's filed demolition permits for the Mike and Sully attraction, as well as the Hollywood Lounge quick service in DCA. So I think some of that is a preliminary study that has to be done for the state of California around the demolition, because Disney's already said that ride's going to run through 2020, some point in 2027. So it's going to run through all of 2026. Yeah. So this is like a study to study the demolition. I want to say that when Mr. Schul and I were chatting about this earlier this week, he pretty much confirmed that this is sort of, yes, it's permitted, but this doesn't mean anything immediate is happening. So that said, if you're a fan of Mike and Sully to the Rescue, get in line, okay? 2026, this is your year. Yeah. There we go. And Jim, over at Universal Orlando has launched a new product, a new priority queue called Universal Express Now. It's essentially Day of Lightning Lane single pass for Universal Parks. So it's a smartphone only, got to use the Universal app, day of only, so you can't reserve it days in advance. And then it's also, this is different than Lightning Lane, immediate availability. So this sounds like a way for Universal Orlando to sell some day of capacity if it's available. And if it's available, it's immediate access and you've got an hour to use it. No get on, grace periods or anything like that. And that part is different than Lightning Lane Single Pass, where the return time you get for that could be way later in the day. This is, if it's for sale, it's immediate access. Universal hasn't yet said what the prices will be or the complete attraction lineup. Stuff I've seen for Epic Universe is $20 for Yoshi's Adventure, $25 for Hiccup's Wing Gliders, so kind of on the expensive side compared to Lightning Lane Single Pass. But again, immediate access. So I think there's some room there for a premium to be charged, right?
I agree, especially on a busy day at the park. The fact that, you can jump to the head of the queue right then, now, that's valuable.
Yeah, it requires less planning, which I like. I don't think we're talking about a ton of ride capacity being allocated to these things. So I think, in the old days for FastPass, we've said that Disney would allocate 80% of the ride's capacity to FastPass. And I think these days, a Lightning Lane, I don't think it's more than 50%. It could be less. I think this would be even less than that, especially because it's day of. So significantly less than 50%. I also don't think it's going to run at really popular attractions that have operational or downtime challenges. So any roller coaster that's going to be outside that isn't super reliable. And as much as I love Hagrid's, I don't think Hagrid's is super reliable. I wouldn't expect to get to see this offered at Hagrid's on a daily basis. Battle of the Ministry. Don't think it would be there.
No.
Right. Things like that. So we'll see what the lineup is and we'll see what the prices are. But I think it's a good start to get rid of some excess capacity.
Okay. Well, again, same thing as listeners try Universal Express Now. We'd love to hear your thoughts, how it went.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. All right, Jim, on to listener questions. Here's one from Jason about our friend BioReconstruct. He says, I've got a question about Bio. Until earlier today, I'd always assumed that I think it's a he, was using drones to get images and was never sure how he could do it. Now I understand he gets his imagery from helicopters. I'm an optical engineer, and that got me interested in the insane telephoto lenses he must be using to capture the shots he gets. And this leads to a couple of questions. How does BioReconstruct's business work? Can he really sell his images for enough to cover his equipment and what looks like frequent helicopter journeys, or is this more of a hobby? And then how does the no-fly zone work over Disney World? Is it easy for private companies or individuals to request and be granted access to no-fly zones? Why would the government allow that? All right, so I knew the answer to a couple of these questions, Jason, before I asked Bio, but then I did ask Bio. So, when it comes to how does BioReconstruct's business work, I'm pretty sure that Bio transcends human concepts like business or commerce in ways that we can barely comprehend. And my understanding about the lenses he uses before today was that Bio doesn't actually use a camera. He simply memorizes the images and then recreates them pixel by pixel in Microsoft Paint like a modern George Seurat.
Oh, so right? Saturday above the park with Bio.
Saturday in the park, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, that was where my head immediately went to, right?
There we go.
As for the no-fly zone, Bio says it's essentially a 3-mile circle centered a bit south of the Contemporary Resort that extends to 3,000 feet above the parks. So essentially it's a 3-mile diameter cylinder that extends to 3,000 feet. And then Bio provided a photo, which I put in the show notes, showing this no-fly zone as a graphic on a construction photo where the Grand Casino Tower was being built at Coronado. So you've got sort of the outline limits of the no-fly zone there, Jason. Also, Bio did supply a couple of photos of his equipment setup as well. You can see a bunch of his camera equipment set up on Epic Universe both during the day and during the night.
Wow. That image of him looking into Epic Universe, that's the first 5 minutes of a Brian De Palma movie that goes very, very wrong.
Yeah, exactly. You'd expect to see this in like an Ocean's 13 movie, right?
That's it exactly. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's got things covered.
Okay.
Bio does, yeah. All right, next question is from Rocco, who says, any chance we get a Christmas overlay at Rock and Roller Coaster with Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas? I would love to ride that while listening to River Bottom Nightmare Band. And Jim, so we haven't talked about Christmas or holiday overlays for Rock and Roller Coaster, but you've got to think that discussion has been has been had, right?
Yeah, but again, what's always fascinating about we're going to do a holiday overlay. The hard reality is that there has to be a want, a need. And if you just mentioned, for example, that the opening weeks of Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets, you're going to jump the posted wait time or the suggested wait time.
100-minute actual waits. And again, that's not the posted wait's probably going to be like 150 or 180 or whatever, but the actual wait in lines could be, we think peak at 100 minutes. And we have, if that goes wrong, we have a special day of process that will adjust that once we start seeing what's really happening. Yeah, but it's going to be popular.
Yeah. And so how long till, a demand goes down for this reinvented, and face it, this was already a popular throw right at the park. It's got new characters, new theming. People are going to want to check it out, even if they haven't been on it for years. And the notion of, how long do you have to wait before, and we should probably, throw a seasonal variation in there because that will help boost attendance. We may be in that Twinkie space again, Len. When does the Twinkie expire? Hey, pal, you should live so long.
We should live so long. Exactly. There's a reason why Twinkies were the running joke in Zombieland, right?
There we go.
It's really interesting to try and guess the popularity of new or revamped things that Disney's been putting out recently. There was at Disneyland that Bluey show that opened up, and remember, like for the first couple of days, you couldn't get in.
Yeah.
But that's settled back now to be normal, right? You don't have to do anything special to see the show. But things like Test Track have very strong Lightning Lane multi-pass demand, and we're a year into it reopening?
Yeah.
Yeah. Buzz Lightyear is not as popular, on today, the Thursday that we're recording. It says, April 8th when it officially reopened, but it's still doing much better than anticipated. So we've got stuff at either extreme, like, very, very fast bursts of popularity, very sustained popularity, and stuff in the middle. It'll be interesting to see what we do here. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, our friend Justin sends in a photo of a freestyle Coke machine at the Polynesian's Captain's Cook, which appears to be running an unactivated copy of Microsoft Windows in the display. You guys have seen this before. Like you'll see electronic billboards with the Microsoft window blue screen of death. This one in the instructions that says place cup on black tray actually has the words "Go to settings to activate Microsoft Windows now." Kind of above it, which I think is always funny. Always funny.
Well,
I did a podcast episode on Justin's Breaking Change podcast, and I put a link to the show notes in there on it. But we talked about the Galactic Star Cruiser for 2 hours. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, cool. I have to check that out.
All right. And then Ben writes in with this question for you. Would Disney ever dare modernize Main Street USA? We've turned another century since the century that inspired the current promenade. When guests start to wonder if they're walking through a museum, I guess they'll start to think about it. But in 2055, when we'll be as far into the 21st century as Walt was from the 20th, what do you think, Jim?
Well, what's interesting is when Hong Kong was in the works, and again, that park opened in 2005, so they began looking seriously at what would be the elements going into that park in the mid to late 90s. That was the discussion, especially given that, you're building a Disney theme park on the other side of the planet, turn of the century America. What is that even going to mean to these folks? And so there was some serious discussion about, okay, why don't we just be bold and, we'll do the Main Street for this park. It's 1955. It's the summer that Disneyland opened. And so it's like big finned cars parked on Main Street and a malt shop. And, and there was supposed to be a store that sold TVs with a big, enormous 10-inch screen. I mean, they did look at it. But in the end, the folks from Hong Kong evidently were like, no. We want Walt's Park. In fact, that's why they did Sleeping Beauty Castle originally the way they did. Just that we want Walt's Park. And then when we jump ahead to Shanghai, the fact that they just did not know the Disney characters the way that we do here stateside. That's why if you seriously look at their retail corridor, the way you enter toured that park, it's Main Street, USA by way of Toontown. I mean, you are meeting the Disney characters coming and going in that park, just with the notion of, hey, familiar with this mouse character we have, Mickey?
Well, I could see that as place setting, actually, in a future park, where they just go with basically Toontown as Main Street USA. Yeah.
But, I mean, look, they have come close to doing this. I mean, how many people remember Disneyland Paris? The retail village outside of the park had a Nets, where they had literally a malt shop from the 1950s. I mean, it's something that Disney looks at, and more to the point right now, remember, there is a brand new castle park making its way through the design process for Abu Dhabi. It will be interesting to see what they decide to do with the Main Street area at that park.
Right. There are a couple of interesting things about this whole concept. One was that, when Disneyland opened in 1955, the 1901, the turn of the century small town, would have been actual memories for people in the park. They would have lived that experience.
Yes.
So that for them would have been nostalgia as place setting. Obviously, now in the year 2026, no one is alive who remembers 1901 small town America. So it's no longer nostalgia because we don't remember it. It is purely place setting. So if we go back 55 years from 2026, what would that be? 1971? We'd have to make sure USA from 71.
No, God, no.
Jim, I'm just throwing it out here. Times Square, 1971 is Main Street USA.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm walking here.
Hey, kids. No, kids. Just keep quiet. Don't talk to anyone. Just keep quiet.
There we go.
Yeah, but I think I think it's more theme and place setting now than nostalgia.
Okay.
But it only works in Western parks, not in Eastern parks. So I think we have a chance to see something else. I do like the idea of doing Mickey's Toontown as Main Street USA because that's also Universal.
All true.
Jim, a bunch of listeners have written in with other ideas for if Disney did a Sphere Las Vegas-like attraction. Michael says Disney owns National Geographic, and it would be really cool to do a National Geographic experience. It could be an ever-changing experience with new movies on a regular basis. I love that idea. And then Kathy says succinctly, the correct answer is Fantasia.
Well, actually, I forget.
It was my second idea after Lion King, actually.
Okay. What was interesting, somebody else wrote in, and I apologize, I should have this name, but also suggested Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, that would be intriguing. By the way, just to circle back to National Geographic, and again, Disney does own National Geographic, want to remind folks that Joe Rohde has a memoir coming out in November called Floating Mountains. And what's kind of cool, and especially given that Joe, regularly travels the world and sees amazing things, but it's actually being published by National Geographic Press, which I thought that was cool. It's like, okay, but very, very much looking forward to that book come November, Floating Mountain.
Well, we should see if he's available to come on the show and talk about it.
Oh, that'd be killer.
That might be fun. All right. Mark wrote in with an interesting observation about Disney mixing IP, not necessarily in the parks, but he says the Disney Christmas newspaper comic strips ran each December from 1960 to 1987, and again from 92 to 97. These feature a crisis each year that threatens Santa and or Christmas. Each year, the holiday would be saved by a mashup of Disney characters. For example, in the 1976 strips, Captain Hook, Honest John, and the Big Bad Wolf are holding Santa's toys for ransom, but Pinocchio, the Seven Dwarfs, and Merlin are trying to get the toys back for Santa. Jim, it sounds like a fever dream, but I went and looked them up, and it's true.
No, absolutely. In fact, just to, again, double back to books that I have in my library, 4 and 5 years ago, Disney did an anthology volume where a number of these strips were collected, and they are just as surreal as what Mark describes. It's sort of like, okay, what sort of medical, marijuana is being used in the...
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Drugs are stronger these days. Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
It's funny because Laurel's favorite show in Disney theme parks is Fantasmic. And she says the ending when you've got mashups of every different character standing on the riverboat next to each other with fireworks going off, she's like, this is the closest representation to what's in my head every day. that I can possibly explain to you. So she loves stuff like that.
Okay.
So I have to show her these comic strips.
Oh, true.
All right. Last question is from Anna, who says, I'm planning an early May trip with my mom and 2-year-old while mom is still free as in childcare.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be flying in. Would you rather stay at Animal Kingdom Lodge and do a single Magic Kingdom Park day, or stay at Coronado Springs and use the extra money from the lesser rate to pay for a second park day? Or is there an option number 3 that I haven't considered? So I answered Anna's email outside of the show, saying essentially quantity has a quality all its own. So I'd go with 2 park days. But Jim, I'm interested to see what you would come up with here.
Well, the thing of having a 2-year-old and in theory having a room that faces onto one of the the pad
Savannahs.
Yeah. I mean, a little kid standing there and having a giraffe come over, or there's a lot to be said of time at the park, but on the other hand, the sort of encounters you can have with animals at that resort are just one of a kind. And
That's true.
I would have trouble deciding between one day at the park but staying at the Animal Kingdom versus, don't get me wrong, Coronado Springs is a fine hotel, but you're not going to have a giraffe come up to your window. All right, that's just not how it works.
That's true, actually. Yeah, the play areas, the pool play areas for kids at Animal Kingdom's resorts are both very, very good. I mean, you could even make a case that why do you even need to go to the park? Save the ticket money if you're paying for it. I think Anna might be an AP holder, but why don't you just go to Animal Kingdom Lodge and stay at the hotel? Okay, that's a third option we hadn't considered. There you go.
There we go.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim continues the story of Disney's Live the Dream project for Disneyland's second theme park. We'll be right back.
There's no one like you, and there never will be.
From the producer of Bohemian Rhapsody, there are many legends, but there is only one. Michael, rated PG-13, in theaters April 24.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Half Man, the new HBO original limited series from Baby Reindeer creator Richard Gadd, examines the tumultuous relationship between 2 estranged brothers, tracking the highs and lows of the pair over the course of 40 years. Starring Emmy Award winner Richard Gadd and BAFTA Award winner Jamie Bell. Half Man premieres April 23rd on HBO Max.
And we're back. All right, Jim, we left off last week talking about how Disney really couldn't find hotel management companies interested in the small-scale operation of a couple of hotels in Disney World, right?
Well, yeah. And remember back then, Disney didn't even want to run the hotels at Walt Disney World. They were having them built by U.S. Steel. Disney had designed them. U.S. Steel would build them and then operate them. And then that all went south, and Disney found themselves running the hotels. But what's kind of interesting, and we'll get to this later on in today's show, it was only after they began running them in October of 1971 that they realized, oh dear Lord, the amount of money you can make running a hotel.
They did not own the Disneyland Hotel at this point.
They did not, though.
Okay, all right, good.
Kind of interesting, and again, we'll get to this later on in today's show, that, starting in 1972, they did make a concerted effort to actually acquire that hotel. But before we talk about that, given that a number of folks reached out about something we talked about on last week's show, the Disney Cone, I thought we'd talk a little bit about that on today's show. And I mean, it's important to understand that Walt didn't shy away from tall things inside of his theme park. I mean, for example, June of '56, we had those 4 60-foot tall towers put in for the Skyway, and they ran from the back of the park at Fantasyland all the way over to Tomorrowland. And if you were standing out on Harbor Boulevard, you could see those things. And by the way, Skyway stayed operational in the park, Glenn, through November of '94, and it was only they were 6 months out from opening Indy, the Indiana Jones Adventure, when it was just sort of an operational decision. It's like the money we're going to spend on maintenance for the Skyway would be better spent, getting Indy open. So let's close that down. And let's not forget about the Matterhorn. All right, that thing, when it opened in June of '59, 147 feet tall, a 100 scale version of the actual Matterhorn in the Alps. What was cool about the Matterhorn in the late 50s, early 1960s is the California Highway Department, Len, made a deal with Disney that during heavy drive time, especially during the summer months when a lot of people were coming to Disneyland, they'd actually put a CHIPS officer up in the top of the Matterhorn with a set of binoculars. And in fact, what's interesting, Disneyland Backstage has this wonderful article that shows the officer up there in full uniform with the binoculars looking out at the highway, because, face it, there were so many people every day who were coming to Disneyland for the first time and didn't necessarily know where the exits were or how to get over, and they would snarl traffic. And so this officer up in the Matterhorn could literally look and have guys who were on the ground like, okay, go up to this exit, there's a stalled car, or there's a fender bender
that needs to be moved. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that.
How did we not get this as an episode of CHIPS?
They got to set the Wayback Machine, Len. I'm just saying.
Okay, all right. Next time I talk to Eric Estrada.
There we go. But anyway, the thing that concerned Walt was the tall stuff being built outside of his theme park. And, initially this wasn't an issue. I mean, the very first high-rise was actually over at the Disneyland Hotel. 11 stories tall. It got announced, I want to say in 1960. They broke ground on it in 61. But because, again, this was Jack Rather, Walt could go personally to Jack and say, hey, you got to put this toward the back of your 60-acre plaza, otherwise it'll visually intrude. And Jack was, sure, absolutely. And so when it opened in 62, it's to the back and people can't really see it. But here's the thing, Len. When it opened in September of 62, they had a bar called the Top of the Park. Which immediately became this super popular place, not only with tourists visiting Disneyland, but also Orange County locals, just sort of like, because you have this great view of the park and, the fireworks and all that. And so, Len, this gets noticed by the Sheraton Corporation, who then announced in 1963 that they had purchased a piece of property on Ball Avenue, and that's the road that runs directly, behind Disneyland.
That's that runs just run east and west above the north of the property.
There we go. Right over back of a house.
There's some budget hotels on the other side. That I've stayed at. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but the notion was that to give this new project something that will really command the attention of people who are vacationing in Southern California, they're going to put a revolving restaurant up on the top of this thing, which, by the way, is going to be 22 stories tall.
Oh, so 50% larger than the Disneyland Hotel and just as close.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so this does not thrill Walt because this thing is going to be visible from inside the park. There's just no hiding it. And so he goes to the Anaheim City Council. And he personally appeals to them. And, and it's like, look, we have turned Anaheim into, Southern California's top tourism destination. And one of the reasons that people come here is that they come to the happiest place on earth and they can't see the real world. And by the way, if you may have noticed, we've been putting a lot of money lately into the park. We're adding the African Veld scene.
Who knows how big this thing can grow, right? Yeah.
All right. And so Anaheim City Council, they're like, all right, yeah, okay, sure. So they go to the Sheraton Corporation and like, look, all right, you can build, but you're going to have to lower the height of the building. It's got to go from 22 stories to 14 stories, and that's the only way we'll allow this to go forward. And all right, that matter gets settled, but almost immediately then, Len, the folks who built the Space Needle up in Seattle, and that, by the way, had only really just opened April of '62. They announced that they want to build a similar structure down in Anaheim, and because this thing is going to be over 700 feet tall. Yeah. It's one of these things where anywhere in the park, not just, it's just sort of like, so Walt at this point realizes, okay.
So hold on. So does Walt go? Do you remember the scene in Ghostbusters where Bill Murray goes to the mayor and says, "You've got to think about the safety of millions of eligible voters"? You think Walt goes to the Anaheim City Council and says, we employ thousands of very happy eligible voters in Orange County.
Well,
it's not for me. Help me help you, right?
Well, what's kind of interesting, and actually he goes the other way.
Really?
Because again, he realizes, okay, we can't keep doing this piecemeal. We got to have an actual piece of zoning, and the Anaheim City Council, when he starts on that road, they initially balk because it's like, you're telling us to effectively tell everyone who wants to develop something in town that suddenly this area is zoned. But again, you got to remember, this is now late spring, early summer of '64. This is literally when Bob Foster is down in Florida starting to buy a property for Walt Disney World.
Right. Oh, okay, all right, yeah. I think in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, this is known as leverage.
Well, but this is what's fascinating. Walt goes into executive session with the Anaheim City Council and the Planning Commission. But he reportedly doesn't say a word about Florida. But what he does talk about is, I've been meeting with the mayor of St. Louis. And we're looking to do a $40 million indoor theme park. It's called Walt Disney's Riverboat Square. We're going to be building it right next to the Gateway. And it's interesting. You just brought up Pirates of the Caribbean because Len, you can go online right now and look at the plans for Walt Disney's Riverboat Square. And among the attractions in that that were being proposed to that was a Jean Lafitte boat ride.
Oh, because it's on the Mississippi, right?
There we go. All right, so it's so it's going to have an early version of Pirates of the Caribbean. And by the way, they had already broken ground for New Orleans Square, and Walt, without actually saying it, it's like, I don't know if I would actually build two versions of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and wasn't St. Louis supposed to be indoors too, where like sightlines didn't matter?
There we go. And,
okay, all right.
So,
kids, this is what's called soft power in international diplomacy.
All right, and we will in a moment talk about how Walt used that soft power. But first, there's this.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The empty seat. Who was actually just that, an empty chair in your office because you couldn't find someone to fill it. So it just sat there costing you money with all its fancy ergonomic features. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can make it easy to fill that seat with the right candidate. With nearly 60% of businesses finding someone to interview in the first week alone. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with no artificial sweeteners and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
And we're back. Okay. Me personally, I love how Walt used Riverboat Square as a way to encourage the Anaheim City Council and the Planning Commission to create what was known as the Disney Cone.
Yeah.
And again, it's all about, I got this thing in St. Louis. And
look, all he's saying is there are pros and cons to the decisions that they're going to make, right? And he's just helping them clarify what they are.
Yeah. But here's the killer part of it. By this point, summer of 64, Walt has already decided that what they're not building in St. Louis, it's Florida all the way. But this was the convenient club, and more to the point, by using this, which had already been announced to the press,
that's the thing.
He didn't have to let the cat out of the bag about Project Florida.
All right, but let me be clear here. He's not asking the Anaheim City Council for a blanket moratorium on all tall construction in the entire city, right? It's just close to the park, right?
Yeah. In fact, the specifics of the plan as it was laid out, for example, any buildings that were within 500 feet of Disneyland, the berm, had to be limited to 35 feet in height. All right. So, when you look out to, say, Harbor Boulevard, to the fast food restaurants and the hotels that are over there, you get that.
Sure.
On the other hand, if the structure was going to be built 1,000 feet away from the Disneyland berm, that could reach 75 feet in height.
Okay.
And anything that was out over 1,000 feet away from Disney property, well, then there was kind of a sliding scale. And in fact, up until 1980, if you were 2,000 feet away from Disney property, you could build a tower that was upwards of 240 feet tall.
Okay. How many stories is that?
Okay. Realistically, that is 12, 14.
It feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I think 6 stories would be somewhere between 75 and 100. So maybe even a little bit more than that. But okay. So that's a decent size. 240 tall. Oh, you've got structures on top with air conditioners and whatnot. But still, you're looking at somewhere between 12 and 20 stories.
You are
within what 2,000 feet of the berm. So what is that?
That's shy of
4/10 of a mile.
Yeah, there we go.
I think that's reasonable. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, but here's where it gets interesting. Disney asks to revisit the language of the Disney Cone in 1980, and the reason for that is, well, again, we alluded to, Disney winds up running the hotels down in Florida, and by 1972, they are aware of what a cash cow these things are. So, so they now turn to Jack Rather and go, well, look, what's it going to take for us to actually get control of the Disneyland Hotel? And, Len, this so rarely gets talked about, but they actually make a concrete offer. They offer Jack 187,000 shares of Disney common stock plus $100,000 in cash.
The $100,000 in cash, I get. I get the need to throw that in to sweeten the offer. I'm guessing 187,000 shares of Disney stock is probably worth billions of dollars. The 100K is a rounding error at this point, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And you have to understand that this is on the heels of the opening of Walt Disney World. So individual shares of Disney stock at this point are going for $223. All right. So it's the cash equivalent of $21 million. And Jack says
back then.
Yeah. And Jack says yes. However, Jack is also being sued by the Teleprompter Corporation at the same time. And Disney, it's like, look, we want that matter resolved before we do this transaction. So let's delay closing this deal till the fall. But Len, I don't need to remind you that the fall of 1973 is when the Arab oil embargo happens.
Yeah.
Disney's stock price tanks on the heels of that. And obviously the Rather Corporation, suddenly, being offered 187,000 shares of Disney stock, which is going for a third of what it was going for just a few months ago. It's like, I'm not up for this idea, guys.
Wow. Okay.
So the company's acquisition of the Disneyland Hotel gets put on the back burner. However, again, every so often they kick the tires, and in fact, the most recent after that attempt, was late 1970s, early 1980s, and Disney got very serious about it. And in fact, that was one of the reasons why they approached the Anaheim City Council and the Planning Commission again, because they're like, look, if we buy the hotel, we're not just going to run the hotel.
The expansion.
That's it, exactly. Okay. They're going to take the 18-hole golf course to the back, the driving range, the miniature golf, the campground next door, and they were talking about building 2 more hotels and even a nighttime entertainment district.
So wait, into the 1980s, the Disneyland Hotel still had an 18-hole golf course, a driving range, and a campground? What? The land is worth more than everything there.
Yeah, but also remember, Len, that this is still during the off season when Disneyland is closed on Mondays and Tuesdays.
Okay,
and you got to give people who are staying at the Disneyland Hotel something to do. And what was going to happen was that when they built these hotels in this nighttime entertainment district, and where they were going to be built, they were going to be visible from inside of Bear Country, even with the hundreds of trees that they had planted there to recreate the Pacific Northwest. And so it's like,
so Disney wanted to. That's why Disney wanted to change the language in the zoning code.
Yeah, because now we'd have to deal with it. Like no. You want to be exempt to the thing we forced you guys to do.
Yeah. Okay. So what year is this? This is the early 80s.
Early 80s, and remember, this is also when Epcot is being built, which went from $400 million to $800 million to $1.2 billion.
Yeah. Free cash flow suddenly becomes a concern for the Disney Corporation.
Yeah. Right? So now they can't afford to acquire the Disneyland Hotel. So the idea gets tabled in the early 80s. Disney, however, once Eisner comes through the door in 84, he gets serious about it, which is why finally in 1987 they cut a deal with the Rather Corporation, and they end up getting the hotel for $152 million.
$152 million in 1988.
There we go.
$424 million today. Okay, that seems fair.
Yeah, and this is why I love the inflation calculator.
Exactly. So was Eisner? He was still sticking with we're going to expand the hotels, we're going to make them bigger.
But here's the thing: this is 1988 now, and remember, June of '88 is when the Grand Floridian opens. October of that year is when Phase 1 of the Caribbean Beach opens.
Oh, that's right. This is Eisner's architecture patron phase. Oh my God! And he can drive up to see this.
Yeah.
Oh, could you imagine the construction foreman seeing him every day, thinking, God, what now?
No, that's it exactly. And face it, this is also Michael Eisner, who's just built his first theme park, Disney MGM, and more to the point, this is a Michael Eisner who's trying to fix Epcot Center, make it from an educational park to an entertaining park, and all of this.
He's hands-on in the parks.
Yes, very, very much so. And more to the point, this is a Michael Eisner who's looking at all of the money that the Disney Corporation is making from its destination resort in Florida, and as Mr. Schul likes to say, Disneyland, the original, is at this point the world's most famous regional theme park. It's got a hotel, which now Disney owns, but it is not a destination resort. And Michael wants to change it into a destination resort. But he doesn't have the 40 square miles of property that he has in Florida. He does have 470 acres, and that's all of the Disneyland Resort at that point, Len. That's the theme park, that's back of house, that's the parking lot, and the Disneyland Hotel.
So basically they've got Animal Kingdom. in terms of size.
There we go.
Okay.
But it's like, how could you maximize what they have in California and turn it into the sort of place that, like Florida, just generates money hand over fist? And what that eventually came to be was the notion of, we're going to need to offer something here that people don't get to experience anywhere else on the planet.
Right.
And that's live the dream. And on the next installment of Disney Dish, we will get to the specifics of the Live the Dream project. And, well, why it didn't happen in Anaheim, but it did happen of sorts in France and Japan. But again, that'll have to wait till next week's show.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait to hear about it. Good show, Jim.
I'm glad you liked it.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, where our latest exclusive show is a walkthrough at Changing Hollywood Studios, and there's a link in the show notes. Disney Journey is the YouTube channel of friend of the show, Jim Scholl, and on his next episode, he travels south of the border in the metaphorical sense to examine the new Coco ride coming to Disney California Adventure. Along the way, Jim revisits the Mexico Pavilion and Epcot's World Showcase, and how a water ride based on Coco fits in the grand plan for Paradise Pier, which started over 3 decades ago. Also, Jim says, don't drink the potable water. There's a link to the Disney Journey channel with Jim Scholl in the show notes. On next week's show, award-winning chef, podcaster, and pasta shape inventor Dan Pashman joins us to talk Disney theme parks and food. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len at touringplans.com. Also, check out The Case 4 with Chris Cox, a new podcast where Chris, Jim, and I debate one theme park topic at a time, and you get to vote on who's right. There's a link in the show notes. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, who'll be pointing out plenty of people besides you who can prevent forest fires at the 2026 Smokey the Bear Days, May 2nd, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Smokey Bear Historical Park in beautiful rural Capitan, New Mexico. While Eric and David are doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Garden House Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.